basically, we called this press conference to address a press conference that had taken place earlier today. Earlier this morning, the Attorney General of the state of Alabama, Mr. Steve Marshall, came out and basically undermined an investigation in the process that was already seemed to be fair and impartial. But however, he felt the need to step in and to take that process away from our local district attorney, Mr. Danny Carr. It is out there that the reason that Mr. Marshall has taken the actual investigation into the shooting death of Emantic EJ Bradford Jr. away from District Attorney Danny Carr is because what he cites as conflict of interest based upon what he perceives in Alabama code. Now, when it comes to the perceived conflict of interest, it's pretty simple that they've allowed simple Facebook postings instead of an actual investigation to figure out, well, if this is actually in fact a conflict of interest. They've allowed a simple Facebook posting to serve as enough evidence for them to take an entire investigation away. What we believe this to be is an attempt for the state to aid in a cover-up in what's already happening with the release of the video. The videotape in the shooting death has not been released. We understand that the attorneys have seen the video, and we are understanding too that the video could have possibly been let out to the public prior to this investigation being taken away from District Attorney Danny Carr. And again, the State Attorney General cited two pictures that I took that were myself and the Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr. Danny Carr is an elected official, elected by the people of Jefferson County. It is not any way illegal for a citizen of Jefferson County who actually elected our district attorney to take a picture with our district attorney. Furthermore, we wanted to bring this photo here that you see, big size, just to let you all know that as a result, I don't have a personal and close relationship with Danny Carr. However, I do have a personal and close relationship to Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall. This picture here was taken May 3rd, 2017, when the Attorney General and I actually met in Alabama. I've been in constant contact with his office over the past year as it pertains to corruption charges. I've actually been in touch with him and his campaign when he ran for Attorney General this last go around here in Alabama. A company had offered and solicited to work with him, and his staff reached back to us, which we will provide those emails and those documents to the media at a later time. But right now, we're here to address and ask for the Attorney General, Steve Marshall, to recuse himself and his office from the pending investigation, as it is a conflict of interest pursuant to the same Alabama code that he cited with Danny Carr, that I'm now going to issue. I don't have the actual code, but I'm going to cite the exact same code that he's citing as it pertains to conflict of interest because of our personal and close relationship.
Ladarius Hilliard, Vice President of the Justice League. I too share the same sentiments as the President. I have a very close personal relationship with Attorney General Steve Marshall. We also have a picture that I posted on Facebook earlier today that I've taken several pictures with the Attorney General, not just that one. The thing that we're here to talk about for the most part is justice. We've been talking about justice not just over the Riverchase Galleria incident, but this is what we have been talking about during the tenure of us coming out and doing these protests and just speaking up on behalf of those who don't have the voice to speak for themselves. We see an injustice being done, and it's being done on behalf of the state of Alabama. The Attorney General is literally invoking himself into a situation where we have elected someone who is capable, who is able to prosecute. Our district attorney has said time and time again, even today he released a statement saying that he was more than able, his office was equipped to handle his case, to handle the situation, and the Attorney General, in our opinion, has come in and hijacked this case, which it speaks volumes, because we've already been lied to from several different agencies as it relates to the police force, when it comes from the Hoover Police Department to the Jefferson County Police Department to the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, and now we're here at the Attorney General's office. This press conference today came as a And all of a sudden, the biggest case that's happening in Jefferson County right now, the biggest case that's going on in Jefferson County right now, to be hijacked by the Attorney General is definitely an injustice, and it's something that we would not stand for. I too echo the same sentiments as the President. We're asking him to recuse himself from this case.
And his entire office. And it's also that we should note that in addition to Jefferson County's District Attorney, Danny Carr, and him being capable of actually leading and spearheading the investigation, if it was not to be true, there is also the cutoff District Attorney, Ms. Lenise Washington, who is also capable and experienced enough to be able to handle the same case as well. So this is kind of showing us that, one, they're undermining the authority of our black district attorneys in Jefferson County. We have 2 black district attorneys with over 30 years of professional experience prosecuting criminal cases of this magnitude, and yet we see that the state attorney general, who's only been here for a year, almost 2 years now, almost 3 years, and we see that he has come in and literally stripped this entire investigation away from our black leadership, who again is very capable. So everybody say you're invoking the race card. Well, that's the only way I can see it. That's the only way I can see it. When you have 2 black district attorneys who are very well capable of prosecuting this case, and yet you have a state attorney general who come back because he have the power to do so, to literally strip that away from our black district attorneys.
Also, we question the fact there are some delineation of the possibility of the Galleria being in the cutoff. As Mr. President just alluded to, in East Washington, there are some proximity of the line to actually decide if it is indeed in the cutoff or into the Jefferson County. It's a little trickery in there. And so we will appeal again for the federal Northern Alabama District Attorney General to take over this case. We feel safer because all the preponderance of Mr. Marshall and his appointment with Governor Bentley and all the goings on that in this heated candidate that he just had with Joe Siegelman as it relates to campaign this and campaign that. So again, we feel safer, and we would ask to yield to another assistant in Danny's office or Miss Lenise Washington, because there's some preponderance whether or not really she should be the one to prosecute the case in the first place. So there's some issues there, and we have grave issues again with Attorney General Marshall coming in after he's double-speak. In one article, he said he's trusting Danny. Danny's going to do a good job. In almost less than 48 hours, he come back and say that, no, we're not going to release the tape because this officer he's a witness in 20 more cases. Okay, all those cases, shooting cases, assault cases. So again, let it stay where it is. And if anything could happen, we feel as Jeffersonians and as protesters that we feel more safer with being home with the possibility of Attorney General, District Attorney, Lenise Washington prosecuting the case. Maybe. There has to be, don't take everything from us. Don't take everything from us. That's all we say. You know, they took it from Charles Todd when he was a Democratic district attorney. And now here it is, one of the cases with a black face and had all the semblance of black people. So you take away, and all the parents heard the mother said, you heard what the father said as it relates to their son. They feel better with Danny Carr as being fair to the family. The prosecution mostly works for the victims. So the victims should have some consideration who should put on the case as it relates to their son. Now, Marshall made reference to the 12-year-old and the other shooting victim. He said that we can't just release everything because it's more than just the son of Mr. Bradford. So dichotomize them. What may be pertinent here, have another to prosecute that case. We are most so concerned about the dead person and the dead person's family, how they feel about who prosecute whoever, and for whatever reason, their son died in that turkey shoot there at the Galleria Mall.
And before Mr. Williams speak, I just want to take an opportunity to make a personal appeal to my friend, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall. My friend, please, my friend, Steve, you and I go way back. I'm asking you to please do the right thing. Recuse yourself from this investigation. You know how things are, brother. You know things don't have to be this way. You know that this is the right thing. It's not for yourself to get involved and to really make this about you. We need you, my friend. Listen to me, my friend. I'm here really begging and pleading with you. You know, you and my friend, we go way back, Steve. Please, Steve, I'm asking you, and I can call you Steve because that's how our friendship is set up. Please, Steve, do the right thing and recuse yourself, brother. Let justice play out how justice should play out. You should not interfere, Steve, with justice. This is not what justice is. Justice should be served, Steve, and we're looking for you to really set the tone and allow. My friend, Steve, please do the right thing and recuse yourself.
Good evening, Ivor Williams, Justice League. And there's so many things to talk about with regards to this case. It's just really hard to bring them all into one press conference. We brag in Jefferson County about being a blue dot. Although this state elected overwhelmingly Republicans in the highest positions, in Jefferson County we elected Democrats. One of those Democrats that we elected was our district attorney, Danny Carr. And so was it not a day or two after Attorney General Steve Marshall took office, he fired Matt Hart, someone that Democrats feel have brought us justice, a person within the Attorney General's office that we believe has been above reproach, was fired. Now, the largest case in Jefferson County, the highest profile case, the first one that comes along, and then our district attorney is removed. And it just begs to ask the question, if every time something goes on in Jefferson County, not only do we have to worry about home rule when it comes to governing ourselves, but also we have to worry about the state of Alabama imposing itself when we seek justice. I don't think it goes without, I don't think anybody misses the optics here, all right? Number one, you had a black district attorney in a predominantly black city about to investigate and or prosecute a white law official. And, you know, we have not gotten justice with regards to situations like this all over the country. And right when we feel we have all of the right evidence, right when we feel we have all of the right people involved, along comes the state of Alabama once again to overshadow and undermine what we're trying to do. And so enough is enough. We have young people who have finally said they're sick of it. We have been able to have peaceful protests in the city of Birmingham that have been ignored and have been vilified, as a matter of fact. And it's just, you know, we got people coming, just like it's okay for the Hoover Police to bring in police from all over the state, from all over the country. We got from Ferguson, Missouri, police officers who are brought in to help the Hoover Police Department. However, our own city, Birmingham, who has plenty of black officers, is being ignored. So, you know, people talk about the race card. Well, yeah, we're going to play the race card as long as it's being played against us. People talk about everything has to be about Democrat and Republican. Well, yeah, we don't say that every time that card gets dealt to us. It amazes me. it absolutely amazes me, moreover, that so many people can sit back to the side and say and do nothing. So many people can sit back to the side and say, wait until all of the evidence is in. Well, let's just try this case on the evidence that is here right now. The evidence that we have right now is that Steve Marshall is friends with Danny Carr.
Right.
Steve Marshall is friends with Ladarius Hilliard. Steve Marshall is friends with Carlos Chavers. I think it's time for Steve Marshall to recuse himself.
Lose yourself, Steve.
In 2018, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King are just as relevant as they were then. A threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And right now, justice is being threatened by the hijacking of our friend Steve Marshall over this case. I want to make a personal appeal as well to Steve. Listen, brother, we need you. We need your help. We need you to, for the sake of justice, I'm asking you humbly to not just recuse yourself, but send this to federal authorities. Not send it back to Jefferson County. We do not want you or your office to interfere in the process of this, because what the havoc that could be the outcome is not something that I don't think your office is prepared to deal with, and definitely us right here as the Justice League, we have been fighting diligently to hold protesters back, to keep people from going into a riot mode. But if this case is corrupted by the state of Alabama and justice is not served, we cannot promise that peace will reign in the state of Alabama.
And it's just that simple. You know, we're literally having to fight off people from states and states away. We're literally having to fight off people from Baltimore, from Ferguson, from California, from Chicago, from St. Louis, literally from Florida, all over the country. They are prepared and ready to come to Hoover, Alabama. I'm telling them not to come just yet. But if Steve Marshall does not recuse himself in 24 hours, we're coming. We're going to ask them to come and help us to get justice for our brother EJ, who was murdered by David Alexander, Hoover police officer.
And where Mr. Marshall can really help, he's a top cop in the state of Alabama. And as these children are protesting, it's not balanced. A kid went to jail the other night because, as a matter of fact, Carlos was arrested. One of his charges because he had on a toboggan, and they said it was a mask. Mind you, that was one of the coldest nights this year when they was out there protesting Ross Bridges Willow. So they said that he had a mask. He had on a toboggan. These are Alabama children, and that garment that he had on was to keep his face warm again. But yet he was charged with, what was the charge with?
Loitering with a mask inside.
With a mask on. And then one of our young ladies was challenged to take off the bandanas on their face. Well, there are other women with other ethnicities that shop with their face closed. The Muslim, the Indian ladies, they shop with a veil over their face. So what is it that she can't have something on her face to protest? So we want an audience to the Attorney General. We want the ground rules, because we're going to protest some more. They're going to protest some more. And we need some ground rules so that our children that are participating in this won't be arrested with misdemeanors, because everybody is not in ban the box. So when you go get a job and have you been arrested and you was arrested and you just put yes, and that person that decides whether to employ you or not won't allow you to really give it a real answer just seeing that you was arrested. And we know that in all likelihood, our children that will participate in this protest won't get any kind of clemency from the mayor of the city of Hoover, so that would be squashed from their record without having to pay some attorney to squash their record. So this ad-living in like they treating our children that decided to protest because a young man was killed, their age, their color, and they are highly concerned. And when they get out here and exercise their constitutional right, which has not been taught good in Alabama, number one, we don't know what engagements are, where we can assemble, how long we can assemble, can we shout? So what is a peaceful protest? What point is it not peaceful? How is it that they say we can't protest on private property when it's public-private property like a Walmart or like a Galleria? That's public-private property. So we don't understand where the road, where the divide is. when it becomes private and when it becomes public. So we need to meet with the Attorney General because he needs to have some kind of education, since they're going to elongate this case, as Danny Carr said, maybe 2 months to 2 years. These children are going to be protesting a long time. And they don't need to come out of this, and people don't say, well, don't protest. No, they have a right. They have a right. And so these police officers need to be truly educated how to engage, what are the engagement rules, what are the engagement lines, because these kids do not need to go from this with criminal record, simply because they decide to exercise their constitutional right of freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. That is a problem. So, Mr. Steve, we want to sit down with you and define what our truth, so our children in a cold night, they can have toboggan on and not be arrested for disorderly conduct because they are keeping warm. Okay?
Not only do we want to meet with the Attorney General, but we'd like to meet with the Mayor of Hoover. We'd like to meet with the Governor of the state of Alabama. We'd like to meet with the Jefferson County Commission. Where I'm going with this is, to this date, none of those entities have responded to our repeated requests to meet and sit down. So I wanted to be sure that we said that publicly. Not one single elected official that has been any way remotely involved with this investigation has responded to any of our requests for a meeting. And that's a little unfair when you talk about what Frank is talking about. We don't even know what the rules of engagement are. We believe that we're going out conducting peaceful protests, and the next thing we know, young people are being arrested, and that's just not fair.
And so at this time, we'll open it up for any questions from the media.
Your point about, I think you said 24, you wanted to see Steve Marshall recused within 24 hours?
Yes.
Is that, so if he does not, what happens at that point?
There's no telling. We don't know. I'm not certain because, like I said.
Hold on, before we get accused of terroristic threats,
Please.
Again, I mean, literally, every time we say something or do something on Facebook, it's labeled. So, unfortunately, we're just not going to answer that question.
Could we see more protests in Hoover this evening?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Protests. The protests, I mean, they're going to continue in the sporadic form they've been. The protests will continue. We're not letting up with the protests.
And it's important to call out that at the end of this press conference, we do plan on going inside to speak with our friend, Attorney General Steve Marshall.
Now, have you guys reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District? You're asking that he gets involved?
This is us reaching out to J-Town's office right here.
I mean, the fact being that they made everything, they're taking Danny Carr off the case, more so about the protesters. And as Mr. Chambers said, there was no reason, there was not a thorough investigation necessarily. And so we do challenge our local base district attorney. What was it that he did was egregious enough that dichotomized Carlos' picture with Mr. Marshall versus Carlos' picture with Mr. Carr. There was no real genuine nexus there. By the own admission of Mr. Carr, he just wrote in the Birmingham, was quoted in AL.com, that he was not close to Mr. Carlos, that he really didn't do anything for the campaign. And the same way that Mr. Carlos dealt with Mr. Marshall, as it relates to politics, it was more so with Mr. Marshall. So that begs the question. They brought it up. We didn't call a press conference. We're responding to one. And with the facts that he didn't realize he had. Carlos has emails, text messages that he's communicated with his office. You can't find as many as Carlos communicated with Danny Carr, because Danny Carr was not a district attorney, but Mr. Marshall was appointed by the governor as Attorney General. There's a vast difference between a candidate and a current Attorney General.
And I'm just winging it here. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But when we look at campaign donations, when we look at campaign volunteers, when we look at all of the things that involve politics with the state of Alabama or nationally, I would dare to say that the people that contribute the highest to the Attorney General would be other attorneys. Okay, so if other attorneys are directly giving money in donations to our attorney generals, our secretaries of state, our governor, and our lieutenant governor, then maybe all of them should recuse themselves from any piece of this and let the feds take over.
So what was the driving factor for the attorney in Jefferson County recusing himself? What do you think was the driving factor?
Relationship? No, I'm talking.
He didn't recuse himself.
He did not recuse himself. Yeah, that's what we have to be.
Suggested to be recused by.
No. So the state has. So the state supersedes local municipalities and local district attorneys. The state attorney general is he can. If there's a pending case in a local county with the local district attorney, that the state attorney general at any moment could take over that case. And so that's what has happened.
It's a hostile takeover.
It's a hostile takeover. So it was not that Danny Carr, the Jefferson County District Attorney, recused himself. It's more so that the state of Alabama Attorney General came in and basically said, I'm taking this investigation away from you.
And media, I want to be very clear because you all control the narrative. Let's be very clear. This case was hijacked by the Attorney General. Danny Carr put out a statement just today, said that his office was more than capable and willing to try this case, and it was taken from him.
Now let me just say this. As it relates to mass, the word mentioned mass, let me just say something. We have a smoking gun, okay? We have a smoking gun as to why this went down, okay? We have a smoking gun. And if something don't happen, for lack of another term, not smoking gun as it, we be careful here. But we have a taped conversation. Okay? We have a taped conversation that was the genesis for this whole situation. Now, we have a taped conversation. And that's all we will say on that. And I strain to say it because if it happened, there would be some real circumstances behind this taped conversation. And I'll just leave it at that, and we'll give it some time to marinate. But we have something that we know why Mr. Marshall went from saying Danny was very well capable and he trusted with him to overnight changing. Okay? So we'll say that we people involved, we have much respect for. But if we don't get this dissolvolution and Mr. Marshall don't have a capitulation and recuse himself, then we will be calling another press conference and we will have a tape.
And further, where I stand with this ultimately as well is if our Attorney General is not willing to recuse himself, then I will be more than happy to take the next step to the Bar Association and look to have him disbarred as an attorney. And if he's disbarred as an attorney, he cannot sit as the Attorney General. So we're asking him to go ahead and recuse himself from this investigation. If not, if he oversees, if he stays, continue to oversee it, we're going to have to do what we do and look to have him disbarred.
You asked about the protest continuing. If we don't get no justice, we don't get no peace.
Shut it down.
Bottom line.